Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I come to this magnificent house of worship tonight because my conscience leaves me no other choice. I join you because I am in deepest agreement with the aims of the organization which has brought us together, clergy and laymen concerned about Vietnam. The recent statements of your executive committee are the sentiments of my own heart. A time comes when silence is betrayal, and that time has come for us in relation to Vietnam. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is a most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformist thought. But we must move on. Some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak. We must speak with all the humility that is appropriate to our limited vision. But we must speak. Over the past 2 years, many persons have questioned me about the wisdom of my path. At the heart of their concerns, this query has often loomed large. Why are you speaking about the war, Dr. King? Peace and civil rights don't mix, they say. Indeed, their questions suggest that they do not know the world in which they live. I deem it of signal importance to try to state why I believe that the path from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church leads clearly to this sanctuary tonight. There is at the outset a very obvious connection between the war in Vietnam and the struggle I have been waging in America. A few years ago, there was a shining moment in that struggle. It seemed as if there was a real promise of hope for the poor through the poverty program. Then came the build-up in Vietnam, and I watched this program broken and eviscerated as if it were some idle political plaything of a society gone mad on war. And I knew that America would never invest the necessary funds or energies in rehabilitation of its poor so long as adventures like Vietnam continue to draw men and skills and money like some demonic destructive suction tube. So I was increasingly compelled to see the war as an enemy of the poor and to attack it as such. Perhaps a more tragic recognition of reality took place when it became clear to me that the war was doing far more than devastating the hopes of the poor at home. It was sending their sons and their brothers and their husbands to fight and to die in extraordinarily high proportions relative to the rest of the population. We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. And so we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor. As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men in the ghettos, I have told them that Molotov cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. But they ask, and rightly so, what about Vietnam? They ask if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problems. Their questions hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. For the sake of those boys, for the sake of this government, for the sake of the hundreds of thousands trembling under our violence, I cannot be silent. Now it should be incandescently clear that no one who has any concern for the integrity and life of America today can ignore the present war. If America's soul becomes totally poisoned, part of the autopsy must read Vietnam. It can never be saved so long as it destroys the deepest hopes of men the world over. This is a calling that takes me beyond national allegiances. We are called to speak for the weak, for the voiceless, for the victims of our nation, and for those it calls enemy. For no document from human hands can make these humans any less our brothers. I speak now simply of the people who have been living under the curse of war for almost 3 continuous decades now. They must see Americans as strange liberators. We fell victim to the deadly Western arrogance that has poisoned the international atmosphere for so long. For 9 years, we vigorously supported the French in their abortive effort to recolonize Vietnam. After the French were defeated, there came the United States, determined that Ho Chi Minh should not unify the nation. The people watched as we increased our troop commitments in support of governments which were singularly corrupt and inept. Now they languish under our bombs and consider us the real enemy. They watch as we poison their water, as we kill 1 million acres of their crops. They wander into the hospitals with at least 20 casualties from American firepower for 1 Viet Cong inflicted injury. We have destroyed their 2 most cherished institutions, the family and the village. We have corrupted their women and children and killed their men. The image of America will never again be the image of revolution, freedom, and democracy, but the image of violence and militarism. If we do not stop our war against the people of Vietnam immediately, the world will be left with no other alternative than to see this as some horrible, clumsy, and deadly game we have decided to play. We must be ready to turn sharply from our present ways in order to atone for our sins and errors in Vietnam. We should take the initiative in bringing a halt to this tragic war. I suggest 5 concrete things that our government should do immediately: end all bombing in North and South Vietnam, declare a unilateral ceasefire, curtail our military buildup in Thailand and our interference in Laos, accept the fact that the National Liberation Front has substantial support and must play a role in any meaningful negotiations. Finally, set a date that we will remove all foreign troops from Vietnam. But let me say something even more disturbing. The war in Vietnam is but a symptom of a far deeper malady within the American spirit. We will be marching for a dozen other names and attending rallies without end unless there is a significant and profound change in American life and policy. I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. A true revolution of values will lay hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of peoples normally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. America, the richest and most powerful nation in the world, can well lead the way in this revolution of values. There is nothing except the tragic death wish to prevent us from reordering our priorities so that the pursuit of peace will take precedence over the pursuit of war. These are days which demand wise restraint and calm reasonableness. We must move past indecision to action. If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time, reserved for those who possess power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight.